Positioning and maneuvering units on the battlefield is key to victory in a game of bolt action. This tutorial is all about shooting. A unit that has been given the fire, advance order, or has triggered an ambush order can shoot. When a unit shoots, the following procedure is undertaken. Units can also shoot when charged in an assault, but that will be examined in the close combat tutorial. Pick a target and declare you are shooting at it. Generally speaking, only one enemy unit is targeted by all the models in a unit ordered to fire. The exceptions to this rule are when a unit contains models equipped with one-shot weapons, such as Panzerfausts, or indirect fire weapons, such as light mortars. More on indirect fire later. When a unit opens fire, only those models that can draw a clear line of sight to their target actually shoot. Any models unable to shoot will not fire, for example if they are out of range or cannot see the nominated target. Infantry and artillery models are always allowed to see and shoot through other models in their own unit as if they were not there. It is assumed that firing positions are taken so as to eliminate any friendly fire within the unit. Models are forbidden from shooting through other friendly units or to draw a line of fire within 1 inch of a model from another friendly unit. In such cases, the friendlies are too close to the line of fire. This applies vertically too, so units on higher ground are affected as well. An exception to this rule is if the intervening friendly cannot be harmed by the unit's firing, such as a squad of infantry firing small arms close to a friendly armoured vehicle. The vehicle cannot be seen through, so bear in mind line of sight for units firing in this situation. Indirect fire weapons may fire over friendlies because they lob their munitions in an arc towards their target rather than firing with a flat trajectory. Enemy units may be shot through, however, though they will provide cover to the targeted unit behind. The rules for cover will be explained in a bit. If the selected target has not yet been given an order for the turn, the controlling player can issue a down order. The player retrieves one of his order dice from the bag and places it next to the unit with the down order clearly displayed next to it.
Take cover!
This will allow the targeted unit to make better use of cover, increasing its survivability for the turn. It does also count as its action for the turn, precluding it from moving, firing, or rallying. Every weapon in bolt action has a maximum range at which it can fire effectively. Each weapon has a number of shots. This is the number of dice rolled on behalf of the model firing the weapon. For example, a rifle has 1 shot, whilst a medium machine gun has 6 shots, representing its rapid rate of fire. Every model that can draw a line of fire to at least one enemy model shoots at the nominated target unit. Ammunition isn't taken into consideration for most weapons, though at the player's option, any number of models may hold fire. This is useful when carrying weapons that do have limited ammunition, such as flamethrowers. Measure the distance between each firing model and the closest visible enemy in the target unit. Then, compare the range of each shooter's weapon with the measured range to the target model to determine whether its weapon is in range. If in range, roll a d6 for each shot the weapon has. If out of range, the shots automatically miss. Each die rolled has a chance of hitting the target. Successful hits represent accurate fire placed in the immediate vicinity of the target, though won't necessarily damage it. Each die roll of 1, 2, or 3 misses and is ignored. Each die roll of 4 or more results in a hit. However, there are a number of factors that can affect this roll, making it harder or easier to hit the target. The 4+ chance to score a hit can be modified. These modifiers are cumulative. Fire on the move. An advance order allows the unit to both move and shoot, though with less accuracy. This incurs a -1 modifier to the roll. Firer is pinned. If the firing unit has any number of pin markers, its concentration has been affected by the stresses of battle and therefore receives a -1 modifier to the roll. This differs greatly from 2nd edition, where each pin beyond the first incurred an additional -1 penalty. Inexperienced. This unit consists of mostly poorly trained troops. These scrubs have spent little to no time on the range and therefore receive a -1 modifier to the roll. Point blank range. If a target is within 6 inches of the firing unit, it is in point blank range. At this range, it is assumed that infantry deploy hand grenades and other units have a much smaller margin of error when taking the shot. This grants a +2 modifier to the roll. If penalties stack up to the roll requiring a number greater than 6 to hit, it is still possible to do so, though with great difficulty. This is because in order to hit, another 6 must be rolled. This is sometimes informally referred to as a Super 6, though it should come up very rarely. In 2nd edition, it was a fairly common occurrence, however. If a shooting unit scores 1 or more hits, place a single pin marker next to the target unit. Note that it doesn't matter how many hits were made, so long as at least one shot is scored, the target takes a single pin marker. High explosive weapons and flamethrowers can inflict more than one pin marker with a single hit, however. Pin markers have been explained in the tutorial on orders and morale. Once the rolls that hit have been determined, they are then rolled again to see if damage has actually been inflicted on the target. The score needed to inflict a casualty depends on the damage value of the target. Only infantry values are presented here, as shooting and damaging vehicles will be detailed in the next tutorial. Heavy weapons and high explosives have modifiers to damage rolls, which make it easier to inflict casualties on all types of units. Regardless of any modifiers, a roll of a 1 is always a failure. And here we have one of the greatest changes to this edition of Bolt Action. Cover saves. If the target unit is determined to be in cover from the firing unit because of intervening terrain or other models, the unit has a chance of avoiding some or all of the incoming damage. The player controlling the target unit discards all dice that failed to score damage, and rolls to determine whether the cover protects the affected soldiers. This is called making a cover save for the target unit. The rolls necessary for the cover to save are as follows. Open ground. If there is no cover whatsoever, then the unit receives no cover saves at all. Cover is important in a game where power, armor, or magic don't exist to provide survivability to soldiers, and getting caught in the open can be deadly. Note that if the unit counts as infantry or artillery and is given a down order, even in open ground it will still receive a 5+ cover save. The soldiers hit the dirt and make use of the folds of the land, keep their heads down and make themselves as small as possible to avoid that bullet with their name on it. Soft cover. Terrain that provides some concealment but little in the way of physical protection to incoming fire counts as soft cover. This provides a 5+ cover save. Examples include hedges, bushes, woodland, fences, and tall crops. It also includes intervening infantry units and soft-skin vehicles such as trucks and jeeps. Hard cover. Terrain that provides substantial physical protection as well as a degree of concealment counts as hard cover. This provides a 4+ cover save. Examples include stone or brick walls, boulders, ditches, trenches, and sandbag defenses. It also includes intervening armored vehicles that partially obscure the target. If a unit benefits from both soft and hard cover, apply the one that covers the majority of the unit from the perspective of the attacker. Down. As mentioned, a down order will provide an infantry or artillery unit in the open a 5+ cover save. It will also improve a unit's cover save if it is already in cover, granting a +2 bonus to its existing cover save. An entrenched unit keeping low in hard cover is a difficult target to destroy. It's important to note that the 5+ cover save for being down or the +2 modifier to an existing save are negated completely if the firer is in point-blank range. This is because the shooter either fires over the intervening terrain or lobs grenades over it. The base save still counts, however. As mentioned in the tutorial on movement, the players should make clear to each other before the game starts what terrain provides cover, and if so, whether it is soft or hard cover. If less than 50% of the shooters in the firing unit can draw a clear line of fire to at least 50% of the models in the target unit, then the target unit is indeed in cover. If a unit has at least 50% of its models inside an area of dense terrain, then it counts as being in cover. A model whose base is even partially within the terrain counts as being inside it. Dense terrain is described in the tutorial on movement. It's a good idea to make bases to clearly mark the area of a piece of dense terrain to prevent any potential arguments. If at least 50% of the models in a unit are firing from directly behind a piece of terrain low enough to shoot over, they will not grant the targeted unit a cover save. A model touching an obstacle with its base counts as being directly behind it. If more than 50% are not touching the obstacle, then the targeted unit will receive cover saves of the appropriate type, such as soft or hard cover. When it comes to units firing from within dense terrain, at least 50% of the models in the unit must be less than 1 inch from the edge of said terrain. Otherwise, their shots will be affected by the cover they are in. For various reasons, sometimes it's difficult to ascertain whether a unit receives cover saves or not. To quickly get on with the game, it's suggested in the rulebook that the target unit receives a cover save reduced by 1 point. So for example, 5+ in hard cover, 6 in soft cover. For every die that scored damage and was not saved, the target unit loses 1 model as a casualty. Casualties represent soldiers killed, wounded, or otherwise incapacitated. Either way, they are out of action and are removed from the table. The player whose unit has taken casualties normally chooses which models to remove, though sometimes the attacking player can make limited choices, such as when a sniper takes down a unit's leader. Generally, the most expendable men are chosen first, though keep the unit coherency rule in mind so that your order selection isn't unduly influenced in future activations. Note that even units that contain models out of sight of the shooters can be removed at the player's discretion. Unlike 2nd edition, there is no exceptional damage rule where the attacking player has a chance to freely choose any model of their choice with a lucky shot. If a unit loses 50% or more of its models from the fire of a single enemy unit, the player must make an immediate morale check. This is just the same as an order test, and all modifiers apply, such as pin markers and knocked out leaders. If the unit passes the check, it stays in the fight. If it fails the check, the men's nerve has broken and the troops run for their lives, cower uselessly for the rest of the battle, or simply surrender to the enemy. In any case, the unit is removed from the game and counts as destroyed. When a unit is destroyed, either by attrition or a failed morale check, it's removed from the table and its order die is also removed, even if it is still in the bag. This is important to remember, as it may unfavorably influence the outcome of the game and cause confusion in the future if the die remains in the bag. When a unit has been given the ambush order, it is scanning the field, waiting for a target of opportunity.
Enemy spotted!
Units in ambush can interrupt any move made by an enemy unit to shoot at it. The ambushers can interrupt it at any point during the move as long as they can see the target at that point. Before, during, or after its movement is complete, but before it potentially has any targets declared to be shot at.
Open fire!
The ambushing player then flips the order die next to it to fire, and resolves the shooting procedure as normal. The targeted unit cannot make reactions to an ambush, however, so going down, recce vehicle escaping, or any other reaction cannot be made. Note that if an enemy declares an assault from less than 6 inches away, the ambushers still can fire. If a unit in ambush is shot at, it can react by flipping the order die to down. This is an exception to the rule, stating that a unit can only go down if it has received no order. Clever use of the ambush order can really improve a player's battlefield control. Though bolt action offers a variety of weapon types, this tutorial is mainly concerned with the core rules of shooting. Each weapon type has a profile found in the rulebook, including its range, number of shots, and other key attributes. I leave it to you, dear viewer, to examine these in detail in your own time. 2 notable exceptions worth discussing, however, are weapons that use the rules for indirect fire and high explosives. High explosive weapons, or HE for short, use templates to determine the number of models affected by their fire, feature a penetration bonus when rolling for damage, and also inflict multiple pin markers. The more powerful the HE charge, the bigger the template, higher penetration bonus, and greater potential pin markers applied. When firing an HE weapon, pick a target unit and go through the steps of the shooting procedure as normal. If the target is hit, an HE template is used to resolve how many models are affected by the explosion. The weapon's profile in the rulebook will describe its HE diameter, which in turn has an associated penetration bonus and pin marker die type. If using the official Warlord Games HE template, the inner diameter of the small ring is a 1-inch template, while the outer diameter is a 2-inch template, and so on. A point is picked where the template is to be placed. This is usually the point where the template will affect as many models as possible. This can be anywhere over the unit, even in areas out of line of sight of the firer, though it cannot be placed so as to clip any nearby friendlies. Once in position, count the number of bases that the template overlaps, even partially. This is the number of hits scored on the unit. Roll for damage with the penetration modifier and continue the shooting procedure as normal. A unit being targeted by an HE weapon can be given the down order as a reaction as long as it has not received an order and the attacking player has not rolled to hit yet. If this is done, then calculate the number of hits as explained, but then halve the result rounding up. This represents the soldiers hitting the dirt and avoiding the worst of the shrapnel and blast effects. As mentioned, HE attacks can apply multiple pin markers, so make sure the right die type is rolled for determining pins. Units still receive their cover saves if available, unless the HE payload was delivered by indirect fire, in which case no cover save is made at all. This is because the shell or bomb comes plummeting down from above at a very steep angle, rendering any cover nullified. Note that any unit capable of using HE or anti-tank ammunition, such as an AT gun, that is given an ambush order must state what kind of ammo is being loaded. Markers can help the players remember this, in case they forget. Some weapons, such as the heavy or light automatic cannon, can fire multiple small HE rounds every time they're fired. In such a case, roll the necessary amount of dice to hit, and then, for every hit scored, place one template on the target unit anywhere you see fit. Mind that a model cannot be hit more than once, even if covered by multiple templates. Units hit by such a weapon only suffer a single batch of pin markers, not several of them. For example, they only take D2 pins from a Whirlwind, which packs 4 light automatic cannons, rather than D2 pins per hit. Weapons such as Howitzers and mortars can lob a shot high in the air to land on top of units, rather than fire their shells and bombs at flatter trajectories such as rifles do. These weapons always have minimum ranges, and cannot hit targets within this area. Once a shot has been declared, measure the distance from the firing unit to its intended target. If it falls under the minimum range, then it counts as an automatic miss. Howitzers, unlike mortars, can shoot directly over open sights or fire indirectly. The player should be clear which method is being used when announcing an attack with such a unit. The crew can fire at a target even if friendly units are in the line of fire, as the shots pass far overhead of intervening troops due to its high trajectory. There is no rule for scattering indirect fire, so there is no fear of accidentally hitting friendlies if the shot misses. The crew of an indirect firing weapon must still be able to see their target to shoot unless a spotter or forward observer is employed. It is worth turning our attention for a moment to the spotter. Many mortar and artillery units can add a spotter to their crew at an increased point cost when putting together an army list. A spotter is always a single unarmed model that counts as one of the unit but is always treated separately and is not one of the crew. They cannot be placed within coherency of the crew but are rather placed in a forward position with a good view of the enemy's positions. From there, they can relay target coordinates to the crew using a radio or some other form of long-distance communication. The spotter does not receive its own order die, it shares one with its parent unit. During a turn, the unit's crew can be activated or its spotter, never both. If the unit is activated, all line of sight is drawn from their position. If the spotter is activated, then it becomes the eyes for the crew and line of sight is drawn from its position instead. In either case, the unit may fire at a target that is in sight of the selected element. Once an order has been given, make sure to place it next to the relevant party, because when the spotter is not activated, it is assumed to be down and receives all of the bonuses associated with that order. Using a spotter allows the crew to set up out of sight of the enemy, safe from incoming fire while still being able to fire upon enemy units themselves, provided the spotter is alive and has eyes on the enemy. The spotter and the crew are treated as being separate in other respects. If the spotter wishes to run to a different location, he may do so, but the crew must remain where they are, and vice versa. If the crew is destroyed, the spotter is removed from play as well. However, if the spotter is taken out of action, it has no bearing on the crew, aside from the fact that they cannot be guided by that particular spotter. If a forward observer is a part of your force, he can fulfill the same role as a spotter as well, broadening a mortar or artillery unit's options. This makes the forward observer more useful than in the previous editions of the game. More on them in a future tutorial. Back to indirect fire. Once a target has been declared and measurements are then made, and the target is within range, a special kind of hit roll is made to determine whether a hit has been scored. When firing using indirect fire, a single die is rolled and a 6 is required to hit regardless of any modifier. If the shot misses, and the firing unit does not move and the target unit does not move more than 2 inches, then the roll to hit in the following turn will require a 5 instead. Each time it misses and the conditions mentioned hold true, then the number needed to hit is reduced by 1, down to a minimum of 2. This represents the crew ranging in on the target, correcting rounds that have overshot or undershot said target. Even if the firing crew lose line of sight on the target because of smoke, vehicles, or other obstructions blocking vision, this rule stays in place. Only if the target unit moves more than 2 inches, or if the weapons crew move at all, will the process start over, requiring a 6 to hit. As mentioned before, if a hit is scored and wounds are inflicted, no cover saves are allowed when struck by indirect fire. Mortars and howitzers are an excellent antidote to dug-in units difficult to budge off of objectives. Units hit that have the down order will still halve the hits suffered, however. Note that the fiddly nature of lining up an indirect shot forbids units from using an ambush order in conjunction with this firing method. And so that covers the core rules for shooting in Bolt Action 3rd Edition. Shooting rules for vehicles will be expanded on in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching, and if you like what you see and would like to support the channel, please consider becoming a producer over at the Patreon site. Link in the description and end screen.